Hello, and welcome to the 12th Ghostlight Tour of the Smith Opera House in Geneva, New York. If you can't come to the Smith for our history tours, we'll bring the history to you. I'm Chris Woodworth, and I'll be your tour guide. I want to take a moment to thank Grady Hollister and Austin Jennings, who contributed a portion of the research for this episode. So without further ado, here's a special Ghostlight Tour bonus episode, the Not-So-Final Show. In 1965, the Smith was no longer Shine's Geneva Theatre and was simply called the Geneva Theatre. Between 1965 and 1977, various companies owned the building, including Realty Equities Inc., United Cinemas, Panther Theatres, and Countrywide Theatres. In 1974, the Geneva Theatre was purchased by Galaxy Theatres, a fitting ownership for a theater whose ceiling is covered in stars. The future was uncertain for the Smith by 1977. Steve Hastings was the theater manager, and he recounted the challenges to the Democrat and Chronicle. Revenue was slim. The Geneva Theatre showed a family film over 2 nights, but took in only $8.50 in ticket sales. The only way to make payroll was by showing adult films. The average box office for an adult film was $200. Back taxes were owed to the city, county, and state. The roof was leaking and causing water damage to the interior. The seats were ripped and torn. Many thought the days were numbered for the theater, as the city eyed the parcel as a potential parking lot. As time began running out for the Smith, one area filmmaker selected the Opera House as the shooting location for an original short film called The Final Show. Writer, producer, and director Joe Janowitz spent many decades working for Kodak, traveling all over the world creating films for them. Joe's love of film and old movie theaters began at a young age. He even worked as an usher at the Riviera Theater in Rochester when he was 16. When the idea for The Final Show began to percolate, he turned to his partner in filmmaking and life, his wife, Debbie. She believed in his vision for the project and joined in as co-producer. As independent filmmakers, they knew they would need to create the film on a shoestring budget. Debbie recounts that they had lots of support from friends and family. Joe recruited Kodak's best cinematographer, Ed Ortman, who was known for testing new film products. The chance to shoot in a dark theater was beguiling for Ortman and Kodak, who helped support the project. Initially, Joe had hoped to film in Rochester, since it was there that his love of old movie theaters began. Unfortunately, by 1977, all of the grand old Rochester movie palaces were demolished. He reached out to Lynn Schmiel, who had managed the Riviera when Joe ushered there as a teen. Lynn now owned the Riviera along with several other area theaters, including the Smith. In a poignantly ironic twist, in 1977, the Geneva Theatre was the ideal site for a film about a dilapidated movie house facing imminent destruction. Filming for The Final Show would soon be underway in Geneva. Be advised, there are movie spoilers ahead. Part ghost story and part redemption tale, the premise of The Final Show is that an evil developer wants to purchase the aging movie house, and in the process of fighting with its old caretaker, ends up killing the man. But the caretaker's ghost has the final word as he haunts the facility and orchestrates the villain's eventual death. At the end of the film, the theater is once again filled with people. The group of people in the final moments of the film, seen filing into the theater and visiting the concession stand, was comprised of friends of the filmmakers, friends and family of the owner Lynn Schmiel, and area residents who volunteered their evening. Steve Hastings even made a silent cameo as the person manning the concession stand. Although the exterior scenes were filmed in Rochester, the interior theater, lobby, and projection booth scenes were all shot in the Smith. Filming took place in June 1977. By November of that year, the Smith was officially for sale. The Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra was scheduled to play at the end of November, and that was slated to be the final performance in the Opera House turned movie palace. Just as the movie theater was ultimately saved in the final show, however, the Smith Opera House also got a second chance at life. A little over a year after the shooting of the final show, Hastings organized a screening of the film at the Geneva Theater. As any film aficionado knows, much of what is filmed ends up on the cutting room floor. That meant many locals who volunteered as extras did not wind up in the final cut. However, as a tribute to their work that night, the screening in October 1978 also included all shots with local extras. Joe and Debbie Janowitz took the stage to introduce the film. Before the 16mm film began to roll, Joe said to those gathered, "Let's hope this is not the final show for the Geneva Theater, but let's enjoy the final show." Luckily for all of us, that wasn't the final show at our beautiful theater. Many people stepped up, and working together, they saved the Smith. The grit and tenacity of these individuals who were dedicated to the theater were key to the Smith's salvation and ultimate glorious restoration. Were you part of the audience, real or imaginary, for the final show? For more information on the history of the Smith Opera House, please visit our history blog, which can be found on our website, thesmith.org. You can also learn how to become a member of the Smith and how to make a donation. We'll see you next time for another ghost-like glimpse of the history of the Smith.